Today we're going to tie the Silli Minnow. This is the fly fishers version of the tube jig. The tube jig was created in the 1960s by legendary Bobby Garland and is one of the most effective crappie flies ever made. This fly right here imitates it pretty good, and it's been one of the best crappie flies I've ever fished with. So let's get started. For the hook, I use a jig head, either size 1/80th or 1/100th of an ounce on a size 8 hook. You can get these custom made variety of places, eBay, Etsy. I go through a gentleman by the name of Joel at ilbjig.com. He custom makes them for me, and he even makes them on painted, can make painted heads for these jigs like this. Alternatively, you can use tungsten bead and a nymph hook. After I laid my thread wrap down, I'm going to come in and tie my tail. For that, I'm going to use a silicone strip. The skirt has a number of little tails on there. I'm going to fold it in half, take my scissors, and cut it like this. And then I'm going to break apart about 6 of these strips for the tail. Now I'm going to use, I've already cut this one up because I'm making a blue and pearl. I'm going to tie it in just behind the eye, as such. A couple of loose wraps, and then, of course, cinch it down. And I'm going to continue to cinch it down right behind the eye. Okay, as you can see, it kind of splays out already. Trim my body. As I come back, though, I'm going to wrap loose wraps, as you can see, loose wraps just above the barb and the tail, and come back and cinch it down some. Now you see that they come together. Now these loose wraps are not going to hold unless I secure them somehow, either with super glue, or in this case I'm going to use UV epoxy. I dip a little bit of UV epoxy with my bodkin, and then I come with the bodkin and the UV epoxy, and I just coat it over those loose threads, even the tight threads. Just kind of coat it up like this. Then I'm going to hit it with my UV light. And now it's solid. I can begin working with it. And look how all that tail is nice and clumped up together. It actually separates a little bit when you're fishing, but not much. Next, I'm going to tie the body in. And for that, I'm going to use, for this particular one, I'm going to use Krystal Flash Chenille in a steely blue color. Like this. Clear away a little bit of the material so I have a secure tie-in. Now as I'm tying this in, I want to make sure I don't go past where I put the epoxy, because if I do, that's going to cause the tail to splay out again. Bring it to the front. Now, this chenille is rather loose, and it stays that way. It's going to be picked apart by the bluegill and the crappie and just torn apart. What I'll do is I'll take a test clip indicator, as such. You can use your dubbing tool, or hackle pliers, and I'm going to just twist that chenille round and round and round. It's going to cause it to become more dense. It's going to make that rope that ties that flash in a lot stronger. And I think it gives it a denser body too. So you can see it's looking a lot better now. Yeah, this stuff is superior to the Estes that I used to use on this fly back in early part of this century. Now I'm going to bring it forward. Let me give myself a little more thread back here. Get near the eye, make some room, and now I'm going to go ahead and tie it off. I'm rather cramped right here with this camera situated from a tire standpoint. And now I'll go ahead and finish my wraps. And for jig heads, I prefer to use a hand whip finish as opposed to the whip finish tool. And that's all there is to it. Well, one last thing. This tail needs to be trimmed. That tail was way too long. I've learned to be consistent with my tails, to have handy a little measuring tape on the bottom of my vise. This fly needs to be about 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches long, where it's most effective. Or basically the length of the hook. So I'm going to trim that tail off. Have to measure it off. Check it again. What makes this fly successful is that when those crappie and brim hit that tail, they'll hit it again a second time. So don't set the hook the first time you feel a bite. Keep fishing it the way you were and let them get a second chance at it. This is a second chance fly.